It's finally time to rank Create Aeronautics add-ons. I've ranked my fair share of add-ons for Minecraft mods, but I've never ranked an add-on of a Minecraft mod. Create Aeronautics has been out for like 4 months at this point, and I didn't want to make this video straight away because I wanted to leave some time for the add-on creators to cook a bit. But now I think there are plenty of great add-ons for us to rank, so let's just get right into it. I thought I'd start the video off with a familiar face. Create Propulsion, if you're unaware, was actually originally a Valkyrian Skies add-on, but I was actually really curious as to how they were going to port this one over, as the original add-on focused mainly on basically adding the Create Aeronautics content to Clockwork, with magnets and those sensors and other stuff. After messing around with this add-on, it seems like they've more or less doubled down on the thruster stuff. This mod adds a lot of different thrusters, but most of them are the same, varying only in how you power them. Create Aeronautics didn't really launch with any base mod thrusters, so I do appreciate how this mod gives you the variety. It also introduces the creative thruster, which is really nice because it lets you mess around without having to think about fuel and such. I slapped it onto the back of this pre-built plane I made, and it worked. It was a little janky, and that's usually the way things are with Create Aeronautics vehicles because we have to design them ourselves. Sometimes you might want to just play around with something that feels more polished. That's where today's sponsor, War Thunder, comes in. War Thunder is a massive multiplayer game where you're able to pilot and drive insanely cool and realistic vehicles. If you like Create Aeronautics, and I mean, like, obviously you're watching this video, so you'll love playing around with the content offered in War Thunder. Players can battle using an extensive list of tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships, including iconic real-life vehicles, but also lesser-known prototypes. War Thunder also offers stunning graphics, physics, and sound design, along with major attention to detail in each unique vehicle that really allows players to immerse themselves in the atmosphere of a real adrenaline-filled battle. Additionally, you also have a plethora of advanced military equipment available to you to make your fights that much more exciting. Things like guided missiles, active protection systems, smoke screens, night vision devices, and so much more. The coolest part is that players are able to play the exact way they want because everyone fights together on one massive map. So you can break through the front line in a tank while your homies cover you from the air. War Thunder also offers a huge amount of customization, allowing you to upgrade your vehicle and change their appearance to your heart's desire. And because all the combat is vehicular based, there's no need for health bars. Every hit on the enemy has a different effect depending on where you strike. Right now is basically the best time to hop on, because the game recently released its Heavy Cavalry update, where new vehicles were introduced to the pool, like the MiG-29K, the M1A2C, and the Leopard 2RI, along with TV guided missiles and massive visual overhauls to 2 of its iconic maps. The best part? Everything is completely free to play, as long as you have a PC, PlayStation, or Xbox. All new and returning players who haven't logged on in the past half year or more will receive a generous 100,000 Silver Lions and a special decorator, and other benefits. Did I mention that War Thunder even has a mobile version that you can play on the go, both on iOS and Android, using the link in the description. Thank you, War Thunder, for sponsoring this video. Now, back to Create Propulsion. Aside from the regular thrusters, the mod also adds these vector thrusters which allow you to control where the thrust is actually pointing. This is awesome. I could definitely see somebody making like an autopilot system or something out of these. I'm not smart enough to do it myself. You can power each type of thruster in many different ways, which is good because it gives you plenty of options and you're able to adjust according to which fuel source is easiest for your airship or plane. You can also make them really big, and like big things are cool, so that's a plus. I made this missile which very tragically landed in the water. Aside from thrusters, this mod also adds the Stirling engine, which is essentially another way of creating stress in a compact way, fitting the aeronautics vibe. It essentially turns heat into stress, so it's kind of like the engine added by vanilla aeronautics. It's hilarious that I'm referring to it as vanilla when it's literally an add-on of another mod, but the key difference is that you can automate the feeding, so with the right setup, it will burn for longer. Oh, and you can adjust the rotation speed, which is always nice. Finally, there are these tilt controllers which adjust tilt according to the amount of redstone input on either side, which is like probably also for autopiloting. But you can also use them for your regular flaps or ailerons. You guys love pointing that one out. It's worth mentioning that this and every other add-on is definitely still in development. I mean, Create Aeronautics came out so recently, it's crazy that I'm even able to make this video right now. I'm ranking with regards to what's in the mod right now, but I think all of these add-ons have some crazy potential. Anyway, B tier. Create aeronautics contraptions can get extremely complicated, there's no surprise there, and often the default link controllers aren't gonna cut it. That's where this mod comes in. Create AERONAUTIcs is probably what I'd call the controlling contraptions equivalent of Create Connected. It does a similar thing in the sense that it gives you a bunch of options for how you want to send out your signals. Aside from this main joystick, everything else works on a modular system, so you can swap in and out components where you see fit to get the perfect control system for your vehicle. What's especially great about this mod is that these joysticks and levers allow you to control exactly how much redstone output you send out, so you can adjust to minor amounts. I put a joystick onto the test plane and it worked perfectly, even considering the fact that it wasn't power sensitive. I also like how it sends out signals directly to frequencies. It's not like a lever or a button where it sends out a redstone signal, so you're able to cut out the middleman. Aside from all the controls, this mod also adds one more incredibly useful item, a gyroscope, which basically keeps your aircraft upright no matter where your center of mass is. This block is almost like a cheat code for building helicopters and airships. It's super easy to use, and if you want an easier, more chill experience with aeronautics, I would definitely recommend using this block as it makes designing vehicles much easier. This mod isn't for everybody because, to be honest, if you're a casual player, you probably won't need all of these advanced controllers, and the regular link controllers or even the typewriter that Aeronautics adds is enough. But for all the technical players, I know this mod is a godsend. B tier. Toolgun is for sure one of those add-ons where after you play around with it once, you're never going to want to play Create Aeronautics again without it. It adds a few very straightforward items in both survival and creative mode variants, and it's genuinely so useful. If you've ever played Gmod, it's essentially the toolgun from that game, but the good thing about this mod is that it allows you to treat Create Aeronautics like Simple Planes or Kerbal Space Program or one of those kind of games, because with this mod you can save and load your physics objects so easily. You're able to try quick modifications and be more creative without risking having to spend time to revert the vehicle back to its original form. What I especially like about this mod is this one feature that allows you to keep track of all your physics objects that you've built and readily teleport to them whenever you want. This means if you ever accidentally fall off your airship or fling your plane too far into the horizon, you're easily able to recover it, which, especially in a mod like Create Aeronautics where you're encouraged to make massive bases on your physics objects, is definitely a helpful addition. On top of these quality of life additions, the toolgun also adds a bunch of little operations you can do, like welding and this rope-like connection feature, which are also helpful if you want to mess around. This feature is actually also available in the survival variant of the toolgun, so I guess you could actually use this item as a transport feature to attach your cargo to your ships or something. Aside from the toolgun, this mod also adds the magnetic gun, which is essentially a gravity gun. The creative mode variant is basically the same as the normal creative mode physics gun. Actually, it's like identical. I don't know what the purpose of this is, but this mod also, like the toolgun, introduces a survival variant which has a 24 block range and can give things a little shove, which is a lot more useful. Finally, it also adds these portable structure containers which are used to hold your physics objects, which is a really nice feature. Sometimes your contraptions can get stuck in weird places, and it's nice to be able to straight up pick one up like a minecart contraption. The main downside I see to this mod is that it kind of breaks the aeronautics theme. Everything in aeronautics feels very raw, and you might argue that having something like this in survival isn't staying true to the core values of the mod. And yeah, I mean, it's a valid point, play how you want, but this mod is unarguably so useful in creative and designing contraptions, so A tier. Before doing any research on add-ons, this one was actually the only one I had seen already. Transmission and linkage adds a way to directly transfer your SU from either the real world to your physics object or from your physics object to the real world. Now, the creative potential of this is already insane. Like, for example, you could have some kind of mobile stress provider that gives you an unlimited source of stress wherever you go, or you could use this in combination with some sort of electricity generator to straight up have electric powered vehicles and charge them without having to move any blocks. The mod adds 4 of these rods. The brass and andesite ones are used for stress transfer, and they each have their own properties. The andesite one is more flexible, and the brass one has more of an elastic feature, so you're able to pick depending on your needs. Additionally, this mod also adds these pneumatic rods, which are a bit more stiff and are more so used for building and joining your physics objects together. Well, actually, this one is. There's also a creative exclusive rod, which just kind of acts like a brass or andesite rod, but it's a lot longer. I'm actually not entirely sure why this is creative exclusive. I feel like this could very much be a survival friendly block, but I guess that's what the developers went with. The rods are incredibly useful and open up a bunch of creative possibility, which I always think is a massive plus. However, this mod also has a sleeper feature that I almost missed. The kinetic conversion bearing does something so incredibly cool. It allows you to turn your physics contraptions into stress generators. When I realized what this was, I genuinely got so excited. This block has so much potential. I remember when Valkyrian Skies first released. Back then, I didn't even have this channel, but everyone made these like weird ass physics objects contraptions that didn't really do anything except for look really cool, and I always thought they gave off this really almost scary vibe. I envisioned putting them into my factories to kind of make them feel like they were alive, and well, now that's actually a reality. You can now have these massive structures in your factories that actually transport stress. Mind you, my example is really scuffed because I whipped it up in like 10 minutes, but I'm sure you see where this could lead. A tier. This add-on is conceptually so cool, so I was very excited to try it out. And now, I don't know if I'm the problem or not. Create Deep Seas essentially adds submarines to aeronautics. You can now build airtight contraptions that actually don't fill up with water when you submerge them. That's all well and good, but after playing around with it, I have to say, one, I think this mod is very much designed for bigger vessels because I had an aneurysm trying to fit everything onto my small ass pod, and that was with the use of creative motors. And two, this mod is way more complicated than I thought it would be. Now, firstly, I do have to say it does offer a creative alternative where you can just simply place this block down and it automatically drains all the water out. But I wanted to see if I could get it working by using survival-friendly blocks. Okay, so here's what's supposed to happen. You generate oxygen by using this electrolyzer, which by the way uses Fe, so you have to source that from somewhere, and it turns water into oxygen. You then have to pump the oxygen into this diffuser, which then distributes the stuff into your cabin, which drains the water out, allowing you to breathe. Okay, but you can't actually move anywhere. To move up and down, you have to use these ballast tanks, which essentially allow you to control the weight of your submarine by pumping water into them. It took me so long to figure out how these work because I swear there's not a second of footage on the internet explaining what they do. They either pump or drain water depending on which way it's turning, which means in order to adequately control your weight, you'll need to set up a clutch and gear shift system. Finally, to move forward and backwards, you can either use the water thrusters or submarine propellers, but of course you still have to be wary of your center of gravity and all that stuff. In the end, I managed to get a submarine that kinda worked, at best. There are also some other items this mod adds, like I saw this pulley and I was so excited to try it out, but I could not for the life of me get it to work. And there are also these underwater mines, which are pretty cool and dangerous. Some of the items I really struggled to get work, and I'm genuinely not sure if that was me or the mod. Like, I genuinely tried for so long to get this pulley to work. I'm putting this mod in the am I the problem tier. I don't know if this is a crazy take, but in my opinion, this add-on feels like a better version of Create Propulsion. Gadgets and Gizmos adds a bunch of miscellaneous stuff to the game, some of which are incredibly useful, and I'm gonna be so real, some of it, I also could not for the life of me figure out what they were for. If somebody could tell me how servo bearings and contraption controllers work, that would be absolutely wonderful. This add-on adds a lot, so I'm just gonna go over some of my favorites. Firstly, it adds its own thrusters that are straight up powered by lava. They're very simple and intuitive. If you want to, you can slap this fuel oxidizer in the front of it, which significantly boosts the amount of thrust it produces. This mod also adds its own way of converting Fe into stress and vice versa. pretty standard. Although this motor did start tweaking out when I connected a second one for some reason. Side note, the textures in this mod are very nice. One of its main features is this physics gantry. I'm not gonna lie, this kinda stumped me. It essentially is a vanilla create gantry shaft, but it acts as a physics object. What confused me was this gantry bell. I just don't really get the purpose of it. You can use it to transfer stress from the gantry carriage to somewhere else. I initially thought it would generate stress by moving along the shaft, so you could like maybe have stress on the carriage and then also transport it to both sides or something, but from my testing, it seems like the stress that you transport off the carriage has to be generated on the carriage. I hope that makes sense. So it seems a little counterintuitive to me because you have to generate stress on the carriage to move it off the carriage, unless you specifically want to bring stress from outside onto the carriage. The word carriage has lost all meaning. I have no idea what I was trying to do here. There are also some pretty nice quality of life additions that are added by this mod, specifically the variable transmission and the smart gearbox. Honestly, I don't know why this isn't added by Create Connected. Being able to adjust rotation speed in one block is so useful. My absolute favorite feature of this mod, however, is this aileron bearing. I'm not gonna lie, I slept on it at the start, but once I started playing around with it, I realized this thing is a torsion spring, mechanical bearing, and clutch in one block. And additionally, it's double-sided. This means you're able to save so much space on your planes. I was able to make this really tiny plane that actually flew. I don't think we've ever been able to make planes this small, not even using clockwork, and something about this is just so cool to me. The third person view was a little messed up though. That's okay. F it, this add-on is S tier. This mod surprisingly adds an item that allows you to throw rope. It works in a pretty interesting way as it literally spawns a rope connector at the location where your projectile lands, which, I mean, like, yeah, okay, it works. I don't know why, but this gimmick instantly reminded me of those guys who throw ropes on ferries as the boat is docking. And to its defense, if you want to use this mod for that, you most definitely can. It also adds a launcher which allows you to throw the rope further, and a mountain cannon which allows you to throw the rope from a dedicated block. Now, there are actually a lot of advantages to this mounted version, and that's mainly due to the fact that the rope comes directly out of the block, which means you don't have to connect it to another rope link. I did notice though, weirdly, when you use the mounted gun, you actually, for some reason, are unable to cast the rope onto other physics objects, which was really annoying because I'm assuming that's exactly what you'd want to use this for. Interestingly, I was able to mount the gun and use a link controller at the same time, which I actually feel like is quite a big pro, although it was a little glitchy, so I'm not entirely sure if this is like an intended feature or not. I also don't really like how it creates rope handles when it lands. I think that this would probably make your contraptions quite messy, and I think it would have been better if the mod used like an entity or something instead. C tier. As of recording this video, Coasters Simulated was literally released 2 days ago, but it looks so good I had to review it. The best way to put this mod in my opinion is it was pleasantly surprising. I didn't really know what to expect and I was kind of scared because it's like brand new, but it's actually really polished. You make your roller coaster tracks with these coaster tracks and these track anchor points, and the anchor points basically allow you to have a huge amount of customization. Unlike regular Create Mod train tracks, these ones have much less limitations, allowing you to spin your track upside down, make it go vertically, and all that good stuff. A detail that I appreciate a lot is the fact that it will essentially hold your hand completely when making coasters. Like, for example, it will not only curve to fit the current stretch of track you're building, but also the segment beforehand to make your ride more smooth. Doing this also means most even kind of awkward linkages are possible. There were a few times when I was building, I thought there's no way this will let me link, only to be pleasantly surprised. It also adds a few utility blocks, like this rivet, which allows you to place blocks off center and on an angle using physics object. This is an incredibly useful feature, and I'm not sure why it's in this mod, but I'm not complaining. Oh, and you can add balloons. That's pretty cool. Honestly, even if you take out the roller coaster aspect completely, I don't know why you would do that. I guess if you're like allergic to fun or something, you could still make an argument for this mod because it adds a physics-based kart system, which is actually something we don't have in aeronautics yet. This means because the karts are actually physics objects, you can do physics object shenanigans with them, like putting this thruster on the back. This actually didn't work out, but I think you get my point. Because these carts take a lot less setup than trains, you could easily use them for something like close proximity transport. Like, I'm sure you could have a few of these around your base to get from your factory to your storage or something, and you wouldn't have to worry about setting up train stations. You can just slap the carts onto the track, and as long as these tracks are set up properly, everything will just work. It's simple, intuitive, and it's a lot of fun. Here's my full roller coaster, by the way, if anyone wanted to see. Honestly, this is an S tier. My favorite part about ranking add-ons is that every now and then you'll stumble across an add-on with like 20,000 downloads and it will be so simple but so fun. That's exactly what this add-on was. Sticky Wheels adds 4 honey wheel variants that, you guessed it, stick to walls and ceilings. When I saw this mod, it immediately reminded me of the little plunger tires from Bad Piggies, and I was hoping it would be like that. It was exactly like that. I don't know what else to say about this add-on. It adds only one thing, and the one thing it adds does exactly what you'd expect it to do. I will say I was pleasantly surprised by the fact that this mod didn't have as much jank as I thought it would. Usually mods like these are very hit or miss, but this one seemed to work perfectly. It was a very enjoyable experience climbing up this mountain and then this little loop thingy I made. Somebody should definitely make a race course or something with this mod. B tier. I was so excited when I saw this add-on existed. In my opinion, the greatest thing about trains in the Create mod is the fact that you're able to automate them, and they'll run by themselves and transport players or cargo or whatever it might be without player input. This mod attempts to do that, but with Create Aeronautics physics objects instead. Now, when I first heard of this, my initial thought was, how does this even work? Like, trains are just entities moving along a line, but planes and airships are highly complex. Like, was it gonna record your inputs? Well, it couldn't, because what if the physics object changed weight? It turns out this mod basically just keyframes your vehicle, so it records their position every second or so. And then when you play it back, it reanimates the path you took when you were recording. Now, this obviously isn't the coolest way to do this, but honestly, it's the most reliable and sensible. It's still a little glitchy right now, but I'm sure once this mod has been developed a bit, it'll turn into an absolute must-have in servers. Just think, automated plane transport for players and cargo. You can have ferries, buses, you can have long-haul airship journeys. As of right now, the mod isn't really in that much of a polished state. But mind you, I was using small vehicles that traveled really close to the ground and were really quick. I'm sure if you set it up right, you could definitely have some big item transporters that work perfectly fine with the current state of the mod. From my testing, it seems like cars don't really work that well right now. The rotation seems a little messed up, and sometimes planes break as well. When I added this block of netherite onto the back of the plane, it did also stop working, so it seems like changing the weight too much also messes with things. Luckily though, if something breaks, it's actually quite easy to fix, and the stations will just tell you everything you need to know, so that's always good. There are also some things to be nitpicky about, like for example, the propellers don't spin when the plane is following the path. But I guess at the end of the day, there's not really a better way of doing this. Definitely gonna keep up with how this mod develops, but for now, B tier. That was ranking Create Aeronautics Addons. Honestly, these mods are so much better than what we had before, and I'm so excited to see what else the modding community will come up with. If you want to see more Create Aeronautics content, consider checking out my series where me and a friend are trying to fly a massive airship to the world border. I think it's really entertaining, and it sure as hell won't bore you. Okay, bye bye.